This is on the fourth level, this pranzo estivo, lunch, summer lunch, that was in this drawing of the 90s. And for example, at that time, this, that is the real kitchen, was not ours yet, so. Okay. Yeah?
Who was the owner of this building?
Families.
His family.
The different families. There are 162 rooms here in the building. A lot are just cellars with no windows, and then some are good, and then some are super good rooms. But altogether are 162. All private, that we have to buy from different families. I remember sometimes, like one room there, that one room was owned by 8 brothers. So to both the 162 rooms was a nightmare. That took years and years and years.
Because then the 6 brothers have to come to agree to sell.
Yeah, but we also use a special law in Italy that now is more difficult to use. Now it's still possible to use for the land, but it's more difficult for the houses. Because in Italy we have, okay, if you are the owner, you can sell. And then we have a special law that is called usucapione, that if you use one space or a building for more than 20 years, without any official complaint of the old owner, you can go in front of a court and say that you asked to become the owner. But the court also do a research of the old owner and tell them that this is happening in a way that they can come also in front of the court and start a discussion if it's true and so on and on. Then there is a special law that is something in the middle. In Italian it's called atto notario, that you go in a public office with 2 witnesses and you say, I have all the right to do usucapione. But you don't go in front of the court. And no one called the old owner. You do this, and you say, I have been used for more than 20 years, and on and on and on, so I have the right to sell, it's mine. And with this, you can go to the official, you can sell the property to someone else. But then the public record, wait 10 years to transcribe this public act on an official record. So they wait 10 years if someone of the old owners show up. So we use this law set for half of the village. Trusting people in the village that they say, for sure belongs to that family. Even if this family, they didn't have official paper to sell, they become owner using this law, and then they sold to us. And nothing happened. It passed much more than 10 years, and nothing happened. So in this case, not all the 8 brothers have to come, because sometime when we had 1 room and 8 brothers, one was here, one living in Germany, one in Canada, because in the 50s, the 40s, in between the wars, so many Italian goes, especially from countryside, goes abroad, immigrate. But with this law, just one of the brothers told all the others, I'm going to do this, and just one came to sign. And just one time it happened in one family, a woman showed up saying that she was not agree with the brother that sold the property to us, that she were ready to go to a lawyer, and then she didn't. But that was then she accepted. Okay. And another thing, and then we can have a short word. In the beginning, we started to buy what was on sale. That was one room here, one there, not connected. Was a big risk, because if the other were not going to sell, it become a loss of money.
And so, like, how much was a room like this completely abandoned? Like, what was the price of a room like this one, for example?
At that time there were no euro.
Yeah.
I remember in Lire we spent 500,000 or 1 million for one room. Like that now would be 250 euro or 500 euro, but is not comparable with the price of 30 years ago and with the change from lira to euro. But let's say 1 million a room in the beginning is like we bought for 2,000 euro for one room. This was the beginning, and then at certain point people start to ask more and more. So I think at the last house they ask, I don't know, 15,000 euro for a group of 5 rooms. Was not a lot of money in the beginning. We spend more money on all the official paper than for the owner, because we have to have an architect, a geographer, and notary office, all the transcription. And I remember that we did a calculation, minimum was half and half. And because we have to go to the notary, like, I don't know, like tens of times. And every time, even now, if you go to minimum, you spend 2,000 euro just because you enter in the office. And then there is the rest. Okay. And then at certain point we start to live inside, and people realize that they own properties that they were falling, and they had a lot of responsibility because now there were people in the village, and so they start to sell because they thought it was a big risk to be the owner of a falling structure. Then we reach, was not real, but we pretend, we went in the village and say, okay, we have half of the property, and like in a modern building in town, when half of the owner decide that they want to rebuild, all the other have to participate. And 99% decide to sell, all in once. Was difficult because we didn't have even the money to buy the room. Then we didn't have the money to restore. But also in that moment that all the people sell in the same moment, it was difficult to find the money. And then at that time we were a cultural association. That have an idea, buy the village. The cultural association do not oblige anyone, but the cultural association suggests. So we should buy, we should move and become a resident. We should restore, we should have a big part for guests. We should. But then when we start to buy, not all the members of the association decide to participate, so to invest the money. So we create a company. So the people that support the idea become members of the association, paying a normal fee of the association, like 50 euro. But then the people that invest the money join a company and put the money in the company. And every time the company there were money, Lucilla and another it was Lucilla and Marco for 20 years. Every time there were money, they went down to the village and they closed some mediation of, for buying the houses. This system went on until we reached a big part of the village, and then we closed the company. At that time there were 15, 20 members of the company. And we designed together half of the village private, we designed like 20 flats. Like, this was with the help of an architect. You see, San Marco. This was in the beginning the architect that gave some name. San Marco, that means that will become an apartment. Naxos, that it will be an apartment. And San Marino, this will be an apartment. So the architect, following the rooms, not following a concept. The concept could be a house should be 40 square meters, just to give an example. But in an existing building, you have to follow what is there. So looking, this seems that these 3 rooms could be a good apartment. And then these 3 could be another. And there we need to use all 5 because it's not possible to divide in 2 parts. So following the room, he designed 20 apartments. That was more or less in half of the village. And the other half was designed the guest house. You see that here you have name. So this is an apartment, this is an apartment. And here, that is where we are. It's all public structure that is lunch, kitchen, you know. So we design the communal part in this part of the village and the private part. In this part there are more or less 20 flats, and in this part there are 4 floors. 1 here for lunch, 1 above and 1 below the bedroom, and the 2 rooms upstairs, like seminar rooms, plus the cellar. So this is more or less. And this part, that is the communal part, is still owned by the old cultural association. So there is a no-profit organization. We are the members. We are all members. And the no-profit organization who own this part of the village. And then the members of the association that invest the money own private flats in this part of the village. We can go down.
From your phone. Also, now we have an excursion. See the village. We have now this group of more than 23 people and some volunteers from another country.
We are a group of 20, adult plus children. There is already some children. At a certain point, we were 30 people. Torri is a quite stable group. It's not a group that people come and go. But it happened that, after 10, 15 years, someone go back down. There were like living here, because it's mostly a place of couple. There were some people alone. That happened that someone passed and they fall in love and they went away. And then 1 or 2 families that after 10 years, 15 years, they decide to come back down. And mostly that was mostly for work problem. Because we that live here, we are happy. But it's true that our job, we own few money living here. It's really a choice that we do because in change we have something else. But for someone of the community, when they get closer to 50 years old, they start to think differently and said, perhaps I still have 15 years of work, it's better to go back to a more stable work. And for one or two family group, go back to town. So now we are around 20, also because some of the children grow up here, they are now went away. We help our children to.
It's like you have 20 private apartments.
There are 20. This is interesting because we also have second houses. Because some members of the association that invest the money in the beginning, and so they have the right to have an apartment, then they didn't move, they didn't become resident. Someone never tried. Some others tried, and then they realized that they prefer to live in town. So there are still the 20 apartments, but I would say that little more than half are for the resident, and perhaps, let's say, 8, I don't know exactly, second houses. This limit the number of the community on one way, but it's true that if Torri exists because there is this relationship between resident and not resident. Historically, this project has been much stronger because there is this relationship. People in town have more money, they didn't have to leave their job, and they had important role that you are doing a course on the mediation. Often the dynamic of conflict start here, of people living here, and the group living in town took the role of mediator. And so for different reasons, on one side we have, like, these 3 windows are closed. It's Lucilla's sister apartment. She comes sometime in the weekend. So it's sad that we have space that we don't use. But to be honest, Torri will be not existing without also the not resident members. So more or less from here to the left is the private part, and from here to the right is the communal part. The communal part has been built around the first rooms that we used together since the really beginning. Because Torri has been created around the kitchen and the dining room, and talking and talking and talking. Especially in the first years, there were few work and a lot of talking. Eating together and spend all the night dreaming what we were doing in the future and talking. So around, that is the entrance room. Around that room we said this will be not private in the future. So around that first 1, 2 or 3 room, we designed the communal part. And then was much easier to find money to restore the private part, because we are human, and it's easier to invest in your house than in the communal house. But a part of this, in the private part, arrive helps from the families. For example, my father, he gave me some money when I have my apartment. And he didn't give any money for the communal part. That was my choice. So the existing of the private part was from the families, and this will remain the challenge for us, how to find money to renovate. And so the building, the action of the retrofitting start first in this area, and then we think how to do with this. In the beginning, we thought to find money from the government. We thought Torri is an important project, we will have a lot of money. And we didn't have nothing, I would say, for the first 15 years. There were always some strange things that block our request. And so we said, okay, we are not rich, we are not having money from the government, we have to earn our money for renovate. And then that was the moment when we decide to rebuild the communal part with this mixed use of guest house plus the house of the community. So the idea was that the touristic economy was the strongest resource in this area to earn money. And it's still like this, even if there are other business also like Daniel in the olive, we have agricultural business and not anymore, but Valentina was a yoga teacher with her classroom. And here we had a ceramic lab. We did a lot of try of different business, but the most important always has been the touristic part. And around this, all some other smaller business could survive.